Something happened in the global car market in 2025 that the press barely covered and that most people in Europe and America still do not fully understand. A car brand that did not exist 3 years ago registered over 28,000 vehicles in the United Kingdom in a single year. That number made it the fastest growing mainstream automotive brand in the country over the past decade, according to verified data from the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders. Not fastest growing Chinese brand. Fastest growing brand, full stop. The brand is called Jaecoo. And the car at the center of all of this is a boxy, fully electric SUV with an all-aluminum body, a floor you can see through while sitting inside, and a storage box on its rear door pretending to be a spare tire. It costs a fraction of what a Mercedes G-Wagon sets you back. And right now, automotive executives in Stuttgart and Coventry are staring at sales spreadsheets, trying to figure out how this happened so fast. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. Hit that like button right now if you find this kind of content useful. It takes an enormous amount of work to put these together, and every like gets the channel in front of more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to catch the next one early. Now let us get into it. To understand why the Jaecoo J6 matters, you have to understand the problem it should not have been able to solve. Boxy off-road vehicles are the most emotionally powerful cars on the market. The Mercedes G-Wagon has barely changed its silhouette since it launched in 1979. Land Rover built the Defender into a cultural icon using the same formula. Flat roof, vertical windscreen, sharp corners everywhere. The psychology behind this is well documented. When your brain processes a boxy vehicle, it triggers something primal. Straight lines read as strength, right angles read as permanence. The message your nervous system receives is not fuel economy, it is survival. Car companies have understood this for decades and have been charging premium prices for it accordingly. The G-Wagon starts at over £142,000 in the United Kingdom. A fully loaded Defender is not far behind. The boxy formula works, but it comes with a serious physical penalty. A flat vertical surface moving through air at motorway speeds creates enormous aerodynamic drag. In a petrol or diesel vehicle, you compensate by fitting a larger engine. The physics punish you with fuel consumption, but the problem stays manageable. The moment you try to take that same boxy silhouette and make it fully electric, the penalty becomes brutal. The battery pack draining faster means you need a bigger battery to hit an acceptable range. A bigger battery means more weight. More weight means more drag. More drag means faster battery drain. It is a closed loop that makes boxy electric vehicles extremely difficult to build affordably. Most manufacturers looked at this equation and concluded that a genuinely capable, genuinely affordable boxy electric off-roader simply was not achievable yet. Jaecoo looked at the same equation and asked a different question. What if we made everything else lighter? The answer starts with the material the J6 is built from. The body structure is all aluminum, and that is not just a spec sheet detail. It is the architectural decision that makes everything else possible. Aluminum weighs roughly a third of what steel does for the same volume. It does not corrode. It does not flex the same way steel does under repeated stress loads. And when engineered correctly, it can match or exceed the structural rigidity of the steel it replaces. The reason aluminum has historically been reserved for supercars and ultra-premium vehicles like the Range Rover is that working with it is expensive. Traditional aluminum fabrication requires precision machining and careful assembly. It is slow and costly, which is why you pay what you pay for a Range Rover. Chery, the parent company behind Jaecoo, has developed large-scale aluminum casting capability as part of its manufacturing strategy, and the J6 is the direct product of that investment. The resulting body carries a 30-year anti-corrosion lifespan. That is not a marketing line. It is a material science decision baked into the vehicle at the point of manufacture. Drive the J6 through salt water, through mud, park it on a coastal road for a decade, and the aluminum body underneath does not care. The steel equivalent would have started showing its vulnerability years earlier. But if you thought the aluminum structure was the most interesting engineering decision on the J6, wait until you get to what happens when you take it off-road. Because this is the point where a lot of traditional off-road drivers get nervous about fully electric vehicles. The J6 has no diesel engine, no mechanical locking differential, no transfer case, just two permanent magnet synchronous motors, a 69.77 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery, and a significant amount of software. The dual-motor all-wheel drive system produces a combined 205 kilowatts, which works out to 279 horsepower, and 385 newton-meters of torque. And unlike every internal combustion drivetrain that has ever existed, that torque is available the instant you touch the accelerator. There is no turbo spooling up, no gear change calculation, no delay at all. Full rotational force hits the tires immediately, and the software managing those two motors can redistribute power between individual wheels in milliseconds. The result is a traction management system that responds faster than any mechanical differential that has ever been bolted to a vehicle. When one wheel loses grip on a muddy slope, the system detects it and shifts power before the driver even perceives the slippage. What this feels like from inside is not technology assistance. It just feels like inexplicable grip. The weighting depth is rated at 600 millimeters. Chery designed every seal and every connector around the assumption that this vehicle would regularly encounter water deep enough to be a serious problem. It is rated to deal with that as a normal use case, not an exception. And then there is the feature that sounds most like science fiction, but is actually just clever use of hardware that already exists. The J6 carries multiple cameras around its body, and the onboard processor does something interesting with that footage. It takes simultaneous feeds from different angles, factors in the vehicle's current speed, the steering angle, and the suspension travel, and stitches it all together into a live rendered view on the 15.6-inch touchscreen. The result is that you can see the ground directly beneath the vehicle, including the exact position of your front tires relative to whatever obstacle you are approaching, while sitting fully enclosed inside the cabin. Jaecoo calls this transparent chassis mode, part of its wider 540-degree camera system that is available across its model range. For anyone who has ever scraped a wheel on a rock because they misjudged a line, the practical value of this is immediately obvious. For a new off-road driver who would otherwise spend every trail run anxious about the unseen terrain below the bumper, it removes the anxiety entirely. What remains is just the experience of driving. The exterior detail most people notice last is actually the one that tells you the most about how this vehicle was designed. Mounted on the side hinge tailgate at the rear is a square panel that looks exactly like a spare tire cover. Every visual cue says there is a tire inside, there is not. Open it, and you find an external storage compartment, a lockable box accessible from outside the vehicle without opening the cabin. The thinking behind it is entirely practical. When you go off-road and return with mud-caked recovery gear, soaking wet hiking boots, or cables that have been dragged through a ditch, you have always had two options: ruin the boot lining or leave the gear at home. The external compartment is a third option nobody thought to put on a vehicle at this price point before. It keeps the mess outside. The cabin stays clean. The gear stays with the car. Step inside and the philosophy continues. The dashboard is almost entirely free of physical buttons. A 15.6-inch touchscreen running on a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8155 processor handles nearly everything, the same chipset used in high-end smartphones. The materials are premium without trying to announce themselves. The cabin is quiet in a way that surprises people who have not driven an EV with a sealed aluminum structure before. Road noise, wind noise, and vibration are absorbed at a level that would be impressive in a vehicle costing twice the price. And there are multiple off-road specific drive modes including sand, mud, snow, and gravel, each adjusting motor mapping, stability control parameters, and torque distribution to match the surface beneath the tires. Here is the broader picture all of this adds up to. The J6 was originally developed inside Chery as the iCar 03, first shown as a concept at Auto Shanghai in April 2023 and revealed in production form at the Chengdu Motor Show that August. It was then introduced under the Jaecoo brand in April 2024 at a brand convention in China as the company's first fully electric model for export markets. Since then, it has launched in Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, the Philippines, South Africa, Pakistan, and others. And the brand it travels under, Jaecoo, went from 0 to 28,232 vehicles registered in the UK alone in 2025, verified by the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders. Carwow named it Brand of the Year in 2026. The combined global sales of Jaecoo and its sister brand Omoda passed 1 million units by April 2026, 36 months after the brand launched. These are not the numbers of a company finding its footing. These are the numbers of a company that figured something out. What it figured out is something the legacy manufacturers still have not fully processed. The established premium off-road formula, large steel body, powerful diesel engine, mechanical four-wheel drive, heritage badge, significant price premium, worked for decades because building it well required expertise and capital that only a handful of companies in the world possessed. That barrier protected Mercedes and Land Rover and Toyota from competition in a way that had nothing to do with whether their solutions were the best ones. They were just the only ones. The J6 does not try to compete on that territory. It does not offer a cheaper version of a G-Wagon. It offers a different answer to the same underlying question, which is, what does a buyer actually want to feel when they own a capable, confident, distinctive vehicle? The answer turns out to be capable, protected, and different from everyone else. And the J6 delivers all three of those things using aluminum and software and instant torque and a camera system that makes the floor transparent for a price that puts it in reach of people who would never have walked into a Land Rover showroom. The legacy brands are not standing still. They are building their own electric platforms, their own aluminum production lines, their own software systems. The gap will close.